the meeting properly posted?
Yes.
All right. Do we have a quorum?
Yes.
All right. Now, for the record, all board members are present, with the exception of Mr. Howard Sampson. We will now turn the time over to Dr. McGuire.
So let's talk about what we've done and where we've been. So we reviewed the vision, mission, and core values of the school district. We discussed the work so far. We're going to discuss the work we had. We're going to talk about the 5 entities and how they evaluated what needs to be on the scorecard. So this is kind of a recap about what we're going to talk about tonight. And we're going to talk about what we've done. We're going to have the 5 come up here and talk about their scorecards for the board. This is going to be the board level scorecards. We are going to talk about the board and superintendent having an opportunity to adjust from that or talk about that. And then we have next steps. And I've got some challenges for the school district on next steps, if we're going to go farther, faster than what we've done before. So let's go back to June. If you remember, we met and we talked about we were going to do a survey of the community. And I've gone through that survey 2 or 3 times, but if some of you would like to see that tonight, I can show that to you at the end of the meeting, perhaps. We had an initial template for a balanced scorecard for the 5 areas. And then we did not meet in July. We met in August. We had superintendent comments, board comments. We discussed high-performing teams and what they look like. We talked about refining the groups, the list, and the groups were made up of the district members and the community. We talked in September about the final vision, mission, and core values, and we're going to settle on those as we have to for tonight. And then the groups were coming together to make a presentation. Tonight, the 5 groups will make a presentation to the board about what they believe to be a board balanced scorecard. And so then tonight, we have taken a look, and Kevin's done a great job pulling everything together. And so we've got a final proposed scorecard, but the board obviously and the superintendent can recommend some changes if we need to. We're going to talk about capability and capacity. As we talk about the scorecards, we have to make sure that we can actually do what we say that we're going to do. And final community comments, if we have some. Next month, I'm not sure we need this meeting. I'm thinking tonight is going to be the last night, perhaps, unless we need to do some adjustments. If we do, then we will. If we don't, I think we're in a place where if the board agrees with the comments that the staff makes tonight, there may not be a need for us to meet next month about this topic. And so we're going to brief about that. I wanted to kind of give you, would somebody read Jim Collins' quote?
The real path to greatness, it turns out, requires simplicity and diligence. It requires clarity, not instant illumination. It demands each of us to focus on what is vital and to eliminate all of the extraneous distractions.
So what we tried to do tonight is we've tried to come up since June with about 8 to 10 elements that need to be measured to determine whether or not your school district is doing the best that they can do. And so that's what you're going to see tonight. So our vision is this. We empower every student with the knowledge and skills they need to succeed in a global community. That's what we have so far. And then we have the mission. And I'm going to let you read that. Now, Kevin and I also talked, and Kevin's done a great job on getting some things together about a model student, what a model graduate, I should say, needs to be. And so we've talked about the fact that maybe the student needs to be around these particular mission requirements and certainly in agreement with our core values. So we think we are coming closer to being able to give the board this model graduate of your school district. Oh. So why use a balanced scorecard? The balanced scorecard is intended to be this fill the gap between strategy and actions. You know, we can say all we want to say, and now we got a scorecard to say, did we do what we said we were going to do? Kind of like a report card, so to speak. and it's about the most important parts of our business. Tonight, what is presented should be the most critical elements for your school district. If we've done a good job, the most important things for this school district from the board perspective should be presented tonight. And so if we did strategic planning on one slide, we saw this last week, but I want to hit this one more time very quickly. We have our past and we have our present, and then what we're putting down on our scorecard should be where we're going over here in our future. And so with that, I'm going to turn this over to Miss C and I.
All right. The first thing we wanted to talk to the board about when it comes to curriculum and instruction is we started off with the theory of action. We really needed to understand what are those assumptions that we need to consider as we move our organization from where we are currently to the desired future that we're looking towards. We needed to look at the causal relationships of what we do and what constitutes a good result in the organization. We wanted to make sure we had items that provided high leverage for achievement and equity, and we wanted to be able to transform programs and practices. So the team came up with 3 theories of action for curriculum and instruction, and that was broken down into curriculum, relationship building, and instruction. And so when we worked on our goals and our plans, we really looked at providing a foundational district curriculum, looking at academic vocabulary, instructional strategies, making sure that things were culturally relevant. We also wanted to make sure that we implemented relationship building strategies, and we wanted to make sure that we were consistent with implementing instructional strategies that support the needs of underserved populations. So based on those theories of action, we were able to develop the plan and the board goals.
The Curriculum and Instruction Committee would like to present to you our goals that we believe will be important in meeting our vision and our mission statements. These goals being academic overall score. You will see in 2018, we were at 78. And what we have looked at for 2019 is to increase that by 1 to 79. And the only reason why we looked at that increasing by 1 was because last year we had kids that did not count. But this year, those students who did not count last year will be counted this year. And so we wanted to allow for that, not knowing how that was going to go. But the next 3 years after that, we are looking at increasing by 2 each year, up to 85 in 2022. Our next goal is attendance rate. In 2018, we looked at 94.9% and increasing that each year up through 95.2, 95.46, 95.72, all the way up to 96% attendance rate.
Okay, and then we have an example of our internal scorecard to support the goals. And so, for example, GCC ISD will improve academics as evaluated by a state accountability system, and it shows you that everyone is responsible in the district all the way down to the parents. So that this is just an example of our scorecard and who's responsible. Okay, and then we have a sample calendar for our action steps for the next 5 years. One example of that might be to identify district-wide high-yield strategies that support the underserved populations. Those might be strategies such as Marzano's, AVID, other research-based strategies that we would train teachers on and then expect the implementation and instruction.
Okay, hold on, time out. You can go, we know your name. I don't know the other two names.
Oh, they presented before. These are our chair people.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yes, I am Harry Barber. I am the art teacher at Carver Elementary.
Thank you. Well,
I'm Kim Hillis. I'm the CIS at San Jacinto Elementary.
okay, thank you.
And Ms. Barber, the students you were talking about were pulled with the Harvey exemptions? And
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that?
And the online
glitches,
testers.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And we're tied at the top of the sixth.
Oh, thank you, I'll check.
That's the sideways.
All right, good evening, Board and Superintendent O'Brien. Facilities and planning long range facility strategic plan. We had two goals that came forth. First was to maintain and improve facilities safety and security systems.
And I'll elaborate a little further. So this goal is in particular related to the environment of education or environment for education. And it will be the district shall fortify campuses with perimeter fencing, secured vestibules with buzzer entry, bullet-resistant glass entryways, updated surveillance cameras, technology upgrades to support monitoring of schools and bus activity, increased manpower to police and security force, and increased training to both students and staff.
Okay, and we were going to look at how we measured. We were going to measure those for 2018, 19, 20, 21, and 22 years in the future. Looking at safety and security, we will look at the safety and security incident reports, excluding verbal and social media threats. But we will look at those reports, and we looked at a rubric of 0 to 10 being equal to an A, 10 to 20 being equal to a B. Now these are place values. The board could set up whatever rubrics they wanted to put in that, but that was just a place value to hold right there, and that would carry out through those years. Then we would look at the emergency drill performances, and those would be either positive or negative in their performance. Exterior safety audit scores, those scores from our exterior audit would be either positive or negative for each year. And then we go down to our second was to maintain and improve a facility safety and security system. Actually, that's part of that same one.
Develop.
Yeah. The safety and security training and drills for administrators, faculty, and students would be either measured through successful or unsuccessfulness. Safety and security personnel report, it should be, we were looking at either adding additional police officers and security officers, and this will be measured with a yes or no throughout the years that, throughout 2022. Our next was develop a true feeder pattern.
And to elaborate on that one affects quality of education. And so when a campus enrollment begins approaching numbers which will maximize the student or building capacity, the campuses will need to be rezoned, students reassigned, or buildings renovated or additional rooms added. Elementary campuses, we decided to attempt to put a limitation on the amount of portables per campus. And that's just for the equity of the campuses, not to overwhelm one elementary school with a ton of portables where another one would have none. And so we are assigning a suggested amount of portables that we wouldn't go over. Elementaries would be 4, junior schools would be 6, and the high schools would be 8.
This would be measured with the completion of junior high number 6, going through the bond process, and the 19-20 year being built, and then it wouldn't be measured in the 21st or 22nd year because it would already be an existing building. Then we would look at or do we have two junior highs feeding into our each traditional high school? And that would be a yes, no answer all the way across. And then rezoning at the elementary campuses would be yes or no. And that would be determined by the board, by the need due to growth. And growth will be monitored by demographic data. And that would be measured yes or no throughout the process. Are there any questions?
So is the goal then for all those things to be done by 2022?
Yes, sir. Well,
Except
for the
number six?
except for the personnel report, yes, because that one would be probably carried on out because to get manpower at each campus, it would extend past the 2022. Thank you.
Mr. Flood, you're looking awful lonely up there.
I know.
You have a team member?
Team of one.
Steve had something to do with his daughter tonight, so I gave him a pass. I do have Mr. Levy with us as part of the technology committee. The two goals that we came up with for the board level is increase student engagement through technology integration in daily lessons. And what the metric that we are going to target is through the teacher's walkthrough process. There is a technology rating that the principals can gauge whether they're proficient or accomplished, distinguished, needs improvement, or developing. So we chose the two highest levels. Currently we're at 30%, and our goal is to continue to push that level up as we continue to integrate technology with the teachers through the ed tech side of my department. The other goal is to evaluate the technology that we do have at the campuses, looking at our technology inventory, the ages of those devices, and try to maintain a refresh cycle, whether it's in a bond or not in a bond, either coming to the board and looking at you guys to help us refresh technology no matter what. Currently, we're at a 34% of our devices are close to that 4+ years of range, and that number would continue going up, obviously, if we do not continue to replace that. And so that was one of the comments from my committee was to look at that, and that's something the board would be able to help us continue to push forward with. So that's why we chose those as our board goals. Any questions? Awesome. Thank you.
Good evening. Hi. I think you know my name. It's Margie Grimes. I'm the CFO. And
Leanna Dixon, the controller.
we also have a couple of other committee members here. Renee Dobbs, the Director of Finance.
Erica Foster.
Erica Foster. Sorry about that, Erica. I know her the most. She's a personal friend too. But and we our two members from the public, Deandra and Suey, couldn't be here tonight. They had other commitments. So we did want to thank them though for the work that the times they've been here and the work that they've helped us with. And so I'm going to have Leanna. She's decided she would present the data. So.
Good evening. We have come up with 3 goals for the scorecard. The first goal would be to maintain an unassigned fund balance minimum of 25%, or 3 months of annual operating expenditures. The district continues to exceed its target fund balance, and as of 6/30/2018, we have an anticipated fund balance reserve of about 42%, which is equivalent to 5 months of operating expenditures. Excess reserves help mitigate the risks associated with the district's high concentration of industrial properties on the tax roll, and it helps to offset the volatility of revenue generation in the event of an economic decline. maintaining this fund balance is critical for the district to maintain its highest credit ratings. Our second goal would be to maintain a AAA credit rating with the public school fund guarantee. Both Moody's and Standard & Poor's has assigned a AAA credit rating for the district, and sound management practices help to maintain our credit ratings, and it helps to ensure that we get the lowest interest rates on our bonds that we issued. On the scorecard where it says AAA or higher, the scorecard would actually say AAA or equivalent, since a AAA is the highest grading that you can get. And our final goal would be to maintain the superior first rating, which is the first rating is really the district's finance report card. The first rating is assigned by TEA to ensure that Texas public schools are held accountable for the quality of their financial management practices. We believe this goal is worthy because it measures 15 key indicators, and the rating system is designed to accomplish the following important objectives. It assesses the quality of financial management in public schools by assignment of a rating A being superior, B being above standard, C meets standard, and F substandard achievement. The rating system encourages better management of the district's financial resources to provide the maximum allocation provided for district instructional purposes. And then lastly, it openly reports the results of the general public in the form of an annual public hearing. So we're required to post and hold a hearing at the board meeting. The district has achieved the superior first rating for 16 years straight now. Any questions?
What is the minimum fund balance? Why does it stay the same? Just out of curiosity.
The 25% target.
Why does our target stay the same?
That's a board decision. We set the target at 25% when we got dangerously close to it and was kind of fearful that we would not be able to maintain that at one point. And so we came to the board with that recommendation. We can certainly raise that. As she reported, although the data hasn't been presented to you yet, it will go out in this week's board update packet. The fund balance was $73 million at the end of June of 17, and that's going to go up to $90 million. We had an increase of $17 million for the fiscal year, so that's raising us up to 42%, which is we'd like to be back at the 50% level where we were once we changed our fiscal year back in
2012.
No,
13,
I think. So we can revise
that's
that.
my point. If your goal is to get to 50%, we're not showing our goal is to get to 50%.
Well, we had a goal, a target of 33%, and you want to have some margin. Also, the credit rating agencies, the criteria that they look at, and the data that supports their rating, we are awarded higher points, if you will, for trying to exceed that target and having an excess of the target. So we don't want the target to be so high that we risk reaching it. We'd like for it to be as high as it can be within reason, that we don't just accumulate excess funds. The public's funds need to be managed that way. But we can certainly change that to 33%. I think that's reasonable and doable, and that's what we had before. So we are happy to change that if the board so desires.
There was also a change in policy, is that correct?
And we did incorporate that into our local policies. Not every school district does that, but in my experience with the credit rating agencies and their reviews, they like for the guidelines to be written, and they also like to see that the board and the district's management has taken steps to ensure that we achieve at least those targets that are like, number one, are they in writing, and number two, did you adhere to it? So we like them to be in writing, and we can certainly come back to you with a local, what's the local, I don't know the number, but we did incorporate that into writing. We'd be happy to bring that back at the next board meeting with recommending a 33% minimum. But the 25% is in the guidelines.
I mean, if our goal was to grow it, I'm not saying it has to be 50%, it just kind of makes it interesting that we just had 25% across the board. Yeah.
Is there a risk to have the fund balance too high for too long?
Yeah, you don't want to get too high. Politicians don't like that.
Yeah.
Well, how high is too high?
Well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask the bond rating agencies, they like the.
CFO is never too high.
It's not never too high for them. And since we have a high industrial base, that high fund balance mitigates that that concentration of our tax base when we have a downturn in the economy. So they like to see the extra few months of operating reserve. I would say that you wouldn't want to have more than 50%. That's a 6-month reserve. I wouldn't say you would want to maintain higher than that. We have plenty of things to spend it on, though, so I don't think we have that problem.
Well, and that was, and then my next question is, you indicated that we are going to go from around 70 million up to about 90 million. Where is that 20 million coming from?
We have a detailed report of that to send out to you on Friday.
Okay.
But we received some restart grant from TEA for Hurricane Harvey, and we were able to reclassify $2.2 or $3 million worth of primarily payroll cost over to offset that revenue. We also received in the 11th hour, like a week or so ago, $2 million because the commissioner approved, we got about 405 additional ADA for the kind of hold harmless ADA we lost during the storm. They gave us that back in the near final report, and that gained us a couple $1 million. We had 2 property value audit studies completed this fiscal year. They both generated $1 million each. One was 14-15, and I think one was 16-17. We had additional local tax collections of $3 to $5 million. I can't remember the exact number.
So kind of
we had a whole
of
array of things. We had supplemental our Chapter 313 revenues, and we had foreign trade zone revenues. So it was just an array of things that just all came at one time.
I guess my last question or comment being the TEA ratings, the superior grade that we have been receiving for, what'd you say, 16 years or so, and then the AAA rating, all of those evaluations of our financial situation are from outside sources.
Mm-hmm.
And, okay, so that's not us tooting our own horn. That
No,
is
it's
our
not.
outside sources. Okay.
So, do we want to change that to 33% at this point? Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I get to navigate. Okay, great.
Mr. President, Mr. O'Brien, members of the board, HR here tonight is ready to present our goals for the board. And with me tonight is Ms. Susan Morfantino, who, as y'all may know, has a long history with us here in Goose Creek CISD, and then Dr. Wyatt and Ms. Lisa Whitaker.
All right, well, it's good to see each of you in a different capacity tonight, and everybody else everyone else that was on our committee is out watching the game tonight, so they checked in. I want to first speak on behalf of the committee to say that we really appreciate the HR department for providing us with lots of information to get us down to just 2 goals for the scorecard. You and I both know that everything we do in this district rests upon the people that we hire, because whether it's the bus driver or whether it's the teacher or the custodian or the food service person, all of those persons help to shape our kids. And so our very first objective is employee retention. We work very closely with the HR department and the principals to move us forward in that direction. So the first objective is to evaluate the retention rate of employees, not just teachers, nurses, and librarians, but all employees. And this would be segmented by campus and department. We have data. They provided data for us regarding the state, where the retention rate was for teacher, nurses, librarians. And then we have to recruit. So we need to be looking at local school districts as well and how we compare to the local school districts. And then we've got campus and department. So just as an example, our baseline for 2018 is 85.5% retention rate. The good news is that we are above the state, because the state's average is 83.6. So we're starting out of the huddle or the dugout looking in a very good, positive position. But as we reach and move forward in our trajectory, it makes it very harder. So our goal is to increase by 1% in 2019 and then 0.5 in the subsequent years leading up to year 2022. And then our second goal is employee job satisfaction. So if we have employees who are satisfied, we're going to have better retention. So they go hand in hand. This again will involve the areas of principals in the HR department working together. How do we do this? Our objective is through the organizational health contract to measure employee job satisfaction. We had an employee job satisfaction survey back in 2012. And as you know, we've had lots of changes since then. So it's time to establish a new baseline for 2018. And that new baseline would be established. There are a number of vendors out there that will do the occupational health inventories and provide districts with feedback and how to improve leadership at campuses and any additional things that will be helpful to make the working environment a positive experience for all of our employees. So that baseline is in 2018, and then 2.5% each of the subsequent years, leading up to, from whatever our base is, to a 10% increase by year 2022.
Any questions?
So the survey is yet to be determined.
That is correct, sir.
And you have base in 2018. From previous presentations, it sounded like the 2018 data had been determined by the last school year. But if we don't have a base yet, wouldn't the base go under 2019 after we do a survey during 18-19? Or do we intend to do one in the fall to establish our base and do it again at the end of the year?
We're hoping to be able to get something done by early spring of this school year.
So the base wouldn't be for 18. We would be establishing the base during the 18-19 school
Yes, sir.
year.
That is correct.
So that when we would start, say, the school year 19-20, would we want to go up 5 points from that base or 2.5 from that base?
Oh, okay. I was thinking this is 18, 19, 20. That's the base year.
And the other reports were more 17, 18. There, here's where we are now. Here's where we want to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years. Am I interpreting that wrong?
I think we could further discuss that and take a look at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That sounds like reasonable.
Adjust if you make the base, this first one, the base, you may have to adjust your plan for getting to 10% in 4 years.
Right.
Exactly.
7.5, 8%, 4 years, 2% a year. Then I have another question about the retention.
Okay.
Because that's pretty close to my heart.
Okay.
Will each campus and each department also be setting baselines and then using that 1%, half percent?
We did
use that as also part of the.
in our discussions. We didn't break it down by campus or department, but that's something that we can certainly look at.
That's the goal.
That is the goal.
I was just wondering because
Yes,
you're
sir.
looking at this is the district goal. I understand that, but when you said segment into campus and department, I want to know, did that mean campuses would set their retention goals and departments would?
Right.
Similarly,
In other words, in the campus goal, and I'm going back to my old days, the district gave us goals, and then the campus's goals had to reflect the district's. So we, look at our scores and try to increase our scores like the district one.
Right, and that's why my intro about food service, and those are departments, and their supervision is a little bit different, I would think, than the campus teachers, nurses, librarians, aides, and everyone who reports directly to the campus principal. So you want to disaggregate that information based upon if it's uniquely a department where you're huddling together and bringing people together and helping them to grow together versus a campus that's doing it.
I don't think putting food services in with classroom teachers,
correctly,
in with bus drivers, in with maintenance and operations, I would think they would.
Separate.
Yeah, they would have to be
And
separate.
if you put them all together, that's what we're looking at, 85.5%. We lost 15% of our employees till end of this year. Is that what we're looking at?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
I appreciate the goal is to, if it's 15% this year, we only want to lose 14% next year, then we want to drop it.
Correct.
I understand that goal, but I want to know if we were going to be looking at it through the microscope of just all 2,000 employees, or are we going to look at the 1,100 teachers versus that kind of, that's my question.
Yes.
Are we gonna pull out retirement?
We can pull out
Can we
retirements.
calculate it both ways, I guess? I mean, cause that can skew you, that can skew it.
No one's going to retire.
And then it'll be the same.
Okay, so I guess I wasn't really thinking about it along the lines of like campus and then departments, food service, bus services, things like that. I was kind of thinking in terms of curriculum departments and things like that. Are we going to break that down at all so that we know like what different areas of curriculum might have, or is that breaking it down too much?
You may want to look at, when you do the TASB pay, we have the 4 groups.
Right.
You have teachers, administrators, auxiliary, which includes your bus, maintenance, food service. I mean, it may be worth looking at. I don't know if that's the direction you want to go, but it may be something that easy to track and keep it all together.
TASB model. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, just an idea.
Okay.
But I do like the idea of breaking it down by campus as well.
I think that's very insightful when you have that level of detail, when you can peel it back that far.
And that goes in hand in with the organizational health. Exactly. That's exactly, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Any other questions?
Great questions.
Thank y'all so much.
And to just follow up with that, routinely, the campus segmentation will be done at the superintendent's level, unless the board wants to see it, because that's kind of downstream. We should get these numbers in a situation where the board can see globally across the district exactly where things are, and then the campus principals should be able to see the retention on their campus and the things that are going on their campus that would go through the superintendent and staff sections, unless the board obviously wants to see that, and then we could kind of follow that around. I think Mr. Poppy and Mr. Howard bring up 2 really good points, though. At this particular point in time, we're trying to work with these board goals at this 1 to 50,000 foot mark. And so we're trying to, and later on, we're going to have the staff do their own particular goals at their level so that they can be able to see things. And obviously the board could call upon any of those for some of those pieces that they need to. But you can also see that we're not really sure where we are on a lot of these things. And so, which is going to dovetail into our next steps and where we need to go. Mr. Poppy brings up a good point. You know, if we got 35%, and we're saying 25% is the minimum, then but not only that goal, but all of our goals. The 2 questions we have are these: does our capability and capacity mean that we should increase that goal, or that we should reduce that goal to make it realistic? And that's a question that is downstream from our position right now, because we really don't know where it is until we get our numbers and we start seeing about where the job satisfaction is. And then we see if we have a campus that has a huge problem with this, then the superintendent and his staff has got to work through and see exactly, is that a principal problem? Is it a campus problem? Is it a demographic problem? Is it something else? Because what we're working on is we're using this with the backdrop of the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. And so these numbers that we try to work with are not to be used in a punitive way necessarily, but to see where are we and where are we not, and can we do something to make those numbers go forward and be improved in a way where we find what the problem is. I was at a school district the other day. I've got to tell you this. The superintendent came up to me and said this to my face. He said, everybody knows we've got to lose 15% of our teachers every year in order to make the district better. And I'm thinking, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Because it costs the school district, based on research, it costs us $100,000 to lose a teacher that's got 6 years of service. So we want to save every teacher we can save, because that is saving the district funds. So I want to talk about the fact that if the board believes, and the superintendent believes, that these are realistic from where we are right now in our journey, knowing that we're not where we need to be yet. We're just not. But that's where we are on this journey. It's not a destination either. It's a journey. And so if we feel like this is a really good starting point, and if the board wants to approve this, then we've got some more work. Kevin and his group have got some more work to do to not only flesh these out, perhaps again, but also to get into their area, because now finance had just showed us 3, but they may have 6 that they want. HR just showed us 2, but they may have 7 or 8 that they want to make sure they monitor down at their level, and obviously the board can call for those anytime they want to. So it's kind of the question about, does the board think we're where we needed to be from where we started off in June, and we're at a good place?
Comments? I would like to applaud everyone who worked on this, because now we have some tangible goals. I mean, some realistic, with accountability and targets, which we have not seen in a few years about where we want it to be. So I'd like to applaud the groups for their work there, at least giving us some baseline data to look at as we move forward.
Very good. Thank you.
I'll reiterate appreciate the hard work, and I think it sets you up for 5 years from now when you can expand it and take it to the next level. Whereas right now these are general, just kind of get an idea where we're at, work on some areas, and then as we get 5 years into it with tracking data, then we'll know of any potential hot spots, or if we know of something that we can address that will help. And we may even identify some of that earlier. I don't know, but I think we're definitely on the right track.
I think what we've heard is many of the evaluations that we've discussed today, many of these strategic plans, we do it annually, but without a target line. And that's what we've been discussing. And I think that's what we've done here, is put a target out there in front of it, instead of just evaluating it annually and making the adjustments and adaptations that we need to. Now we have goals and targets.
Right. Now, if these are really good, then when the board, when these are starting to change, or at a regular basis, let's say quarterly, just to kick it off, every quarter the board should get an update about where we thought we were, where we are, and where we believe we can go. I mean, if these are the most important things and the board agrees, now we also need not to fall in love with this list, because this is a living, breathing document. If something else happens, if we hit a bunch of issues somewhere, it may bump one of these out of the way, and we put another one in there that we want to monitor from the board side. So don't fall in love with these thinking they're the best ones we have and we can't change them, because we've got to change them based upon the environment that we're in and things that occur. So let me go to next steps and talk about that. And I'm going to kind of try to put this where everybody can see it, perhaps. If it looks like we've gotten board approval, then the next thing for us, in the superintendent approval, The next thing for us to do is to refine these again with the comments that the board made, and I think they're right on track. I mean, they're very good comments by the board about our capability, capacity, can we do it or not do it, et cetera. We also have got to take a look at our vision, mission, and core values again, just one more time. And now that we have these, is there something that's up here that's in conflict with what the board has already agreed on the vision, mission, core values? And I think your core values are going to be the anchor for what your graduate is going to be. This model graduate should be able to model all of those core values, or we've got a mistake somewhere in our system. So I think that's going to, next month we could probably have that proposal. Again, Kevin's done a really good job on that. The next thing to consider is whether or not we want to go for the Baldridge Award and the Quality Texas Foundation. The Quality Texas Foundation has an award where they recognize the best school districts in Texas. Do we want to play on that field? I mean, in my personal opinion, you've got the people. Now the question is do we want to do that? We have the Secretary of State coming to present our awards and maybe the governor in June. So there's a good chance that you could walk across the stage in June and receive an award from the Secretary of State of Texas. But it's going to require some intentional, deliberate work, which leads to the next part about we've got training that's coming up at Schertz Cibolo Universal City, who's about 6 years ahead of you, to be honest. About 6. But you can catch up pretty quickly if we had some people go to that training. Then we could catch up. We could knock out a couple of years. We can't get 6, but we can knock out some of it. And we could get on track to really be acknowledged, because there's several levels of recognition. So there's no question we could win the recognition level and get ready to think about the award. We've also got leadership training and strategic planning training coming up. It may behoove the board and some other people to go to that strategic planning, with Baldridge-based strategic planning, so that we could go to that next level. And we could walk you through that next level. So those are the things that I think are on our agenda, because I sure would like to see somebody walk across that stage and get recognition at that River Center Marriott in June of 2019 and put this school district on a state map. So with that, I guess if you thought that was a little challenge, it was.
So, Dr. McGuire, at our fall retreat in Austin, I was able to hear Dr. Gibson. He did a presentation over at Schertz Cibolo and their strategic plan. And it was a lot about what this process has been, keeping an open dialogue, meeting, not frequently, but infrequently meeting to update your goals and strategies. And so it didn't seem like rocket science, but like you said, they've just been doing it for several years now. And so it's just a natural thing. People don't come into the meeting stressed, or what are they going to think, or what are we, we're up here, there's no judgment. It becomes a natural way of doing things, an open form of dialogue of how we can make things better. I really appreciated his presentation. It was about a 30-minute presentation. It wasn't real long. He just went through the process, and it was really good. I appreciated seeing him.
Well, one of the things that when you walk across the stage and get that recognition, then somebody's got to do a breakout to talk about your journey so far. Because there'll be other school districts sitting in the room who have not done what you have done. And you've got a great community here. I have met some really great community members through our 5 or 6 months. A couple of weird ones. But I mean, we got to be honest, don't we? But we've got a great group of people here, and I would like to, see y'all do a breakout. I'd like to see you get that recognition and be able to talk about your school district, because you're exactly right. Dr. Gibson, about 6-7 years ago, was right at this very same place. And now, but now when they have a meeting, guess what they say? They say, what is best for the student? I mean, we say, well, no, this is best for us. And they say, we're not doing that then. What is best for the student? I mean, it changes the way you look at everything. and they have the permission to speak freely. You know, if I disagree with the superintendent, I can tell the superintendent that I disagree with him. Now, he gets to make the call because he's the boss. But I can be honest with him about, I don't think this is right, and explain it to him, and he cannot be honest and say, I think you're right, or no, we're going this way. So it's a really magical thing when it all comes together. So any other questions or comments? Because I think tonight, I don't want to hold you here just for anything that we don't need.
I'd like to open the floor for comments from the audience. Anyone wants to care to speak about the process, something that we can do a little bit better in the process as we move forward, or something you really appreciate or liked what we did? Was your group big enough? Was it too big? Those types of things. Any comments on that? Don't be shy. This is part of that first step of open dialogue. Yes.
On, so maybe some people are home. Maybe not schedule the meeting on the same night as Astros.
Don't schedule meetings on Astros nights. Okay. Point made. Your whole team is here.
Great CMI team that is here on Astros night.
I pretty much want to say, you know, in working for the district and in the teaching part, this whole process has really opened my eyes a lot more to the whole process of the district and decision making and seeing what is best for the student rather than best
Adults, right.
I've been thinking a lot about maybe adding a little bit to this process, and that is if we could have maybe some student representation, to have a student voice in the room for some of these committees, I think would be really powerful. To think about when the board meeting about the vision and the mission and the core values, to have a representative of our customers that we're trying to serve would be really helpful. It's not everything, but some maybe students should be there.
Very good. Do we have any parents in the audience?
I just want to say something really quick about your comment. I'm sitting up here thinking kind of the same thing that you're thinking, because I'm looking at portrait of a GCC ISD graduate, and I'm not sure if this is, you know, in packets or if anyone else has seen it. And I'm sitting here thinking, my son needs to see this. I'm putting this on his mirror at home when I get home tonight, okay? Because this is what they need to know what we're expecting of them, and give them some ownership in the whole education process as well. You know, these are goals that they should know that they're reaching for every day, and that we expect when they graduate, after all of this work that all of you have done, all our staff does every day, that this is what they can be proud to be. And so.
No, that's draft form. It hasn't been published
Well,
yet.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I wish you could see it. But
Mr. Foxworth was saying he may have that at the next meeting.
Okay. Well, you'll love it.
Now's your chance.
I'm sorry, I cut somebody off. I mean, whoever you were, I'm sorry.
Where do they pick up their paycheck on the way out? Well, thank you all so very, very much. We appreciate you being part of the process. Should the process roll forward, we have all your contact information for a future meeting, whether we have another summary meeting or whether this moves forward as actual material that we're going to use moving forward with our strategic plan. Any edits or changes are at the leisure of the board. But you have framed it up very, very nicely, and on behalf of the board, myself, thank you all so much for the hours and hours that you put into this process. Thank you all so much. Dr. McGuire, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Any closing words from you, sir?
I am just excited about where you're going. I'm really excited about where you're going. And I can see things right now that you can't see because I've already been to the hilltop with Baldridge. And I can tell you that it's going to be an incredible journey. When we start walking across that stage, you're going to get used to it. We're going to be recognized across the state, and I'm just excited about being there when it takes place.
So I know you've worked closely with Mr. Foxworth. Should we keep him around? Or
I think so. I tell you what, Kevin has really done a great job. He's really done a great job. I think my wife and I are inviting him for Christmas because we're getting pretty close.
All right, we believe we're about to adjourn into closed session. That will conclude our workshop. We thank y'all so very much for coming.
Thank you. Should be everywhere. Should be everywhere. All right, the next item on our agenda is closed session. Dr. Palace? We'll adjourn the board workshop. We will now recess into closed session pursuant to the following sections of Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code Section 551, 071, 072, 073, 074, 075, 076, 082, 083, 084, 087. No action will be taken while the board is in closed session. Now, 8:55 for Richard. No action was taken in closed session. Right.